Do you ever feel like your mind never stops? Thoughts about the past, worries about the future, endless noise that never lets you rest. What if I told you that peace isn't something you chase? It's something you already have, hidden beneath all that noise. Welcome to The Power of Now, a book that has changed millions of lives across the world. Written by Eckhart Tolle, it isn't just a spiritual book. It's a practical guide to stop living in your head and start living in the present moment. So sit back, breathe, and let's explore the deep wisdom of the power of now, the art of awakening your consciousness and discovering peace that never leaves. Chapter 1. You are not your mind. We live in a world where silence feels uncomfortable. Moments without noise, without thoughts, make us uneasy. But have you ever stopped to notice who's creating that endless noise in your head? Is it really you? Or is it something else? Eckhart Tolle begins The Power of Now with one of the most eye-opening truths ever revealed. You are not your mind. Our mind is a beautiful tool, capable of solving problems, creating art, discovering galaxies. But the same mind, when left unchecked, becomes a cage. Most of us are trapped in an endless stream of thoughts. We're constantly analyzing, comparing, planning, judging, and we call that living. But in truth, we've become addicted to thinking. Tolle explains that this addiction is humanity's greatest disease. We don't even realize that we're thinking all the time, like a radio that never turns off. And when that voice in the head becomes too loud, we start to believe it is who we are. But here's the truth. You are not the voice. You are the one who hears it. Tolle says freedom begins the moment you realize, I am not the thinker. When you step back and simply observe your thoughts without judging them, a miracle happens. You discover a deeper dimension within you, a silent awareness that watches. Imagine sitting on a hill, watching clouds drift by. The clouds are your thoughts, but you are the sky. Unmoved, infinite, peaceful. This awareness is what Tolle calls consciousness, the space in which all thoughts appear and disappear. And this space is who you truly are. The mind is never satisfied with what is. It always wants to change something about the past, the present, or the future. It thrives on problems. That's why even when life is peaceful, the mind will create something to worry about. It says, what if this goes wrong? Or why didn't that happen? And soon you're lost, replaying painful memories or imagining future disasters. This is how the mind traps us in an endless cycle of anxiety and regret. We live everywhere, except in the present moment. Tolle calls this the illusion of time. The past and future exist only as thoughts in your head. But life, real life, is happening now. As the mind grows stronger, it creates an identity, a false self that says, this is who I am, my name, my job, my achievements, my story. This false self is the ego, and the ego survives only through separation. It constantly compares and competes. It says, I'm better than him, or she's luckier than me. It feeds on attention, conflict, and validation. But deep down, the ego is fragile because it's built entirely on thought. The moment you stop believing in its story, it begins to crumble. And under it, you discover something timeless, your real self, untouched by thought or fear. Freedom begins when you start observing your mind like an outsider. When you hear that inner voice complaining or worrying, don't fight it, just watch it. You'll notice a strange thing. The moment you observe your thoughts, they begin to lose power. A gap appears, a moment of silence. And in that silence, you feel peace. That peace isn't something you create. It's your natural state, waiting for you beneath the chaos of the mind. Tolle gives a simple yet powerful practice. Start listening to the voice in your head as often as you can. But this time, listen without believing it. Just notice the thoughts come and go like waves on the shore. And remind yourself, there is the thought, and here I am, watching it. The moment you can see the thought, you are no longer trapped by it. You've taken your first step into awareness. You've touched the power of now. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind them. But if the mind is not who you are, then why does it create so much pain? Where does all that inner suffering actually come from? And how can we end it? Stay tuned, because in the next chapter, Eckhart Tolle reveals the secret way to dissolve pain itself by awakening the light of consciousness. Chapter 2: Consciousness, the way out of pain. We all experience pain, emotional pain, mental pain, the pain of losing someone, of failure, rejection, loneliness, or fear. But Eckhart Tolle says something extraordinary, that pain is not caused by life itself, it is caused by our resistance to life. Pain is natural, suffering is optional. Tolle explains that every time we deny the present moment, when we say, "This shouldn't be happening," or "Why did this happen to me?" we create pain. The more we resist what is, the more life seems to fight back. We try to escape the present moment, running either into the past or the future, but both are illusions created by the mind. All suffering, he says, is nothing more than a thought about something that no longer exists or hasn't happened yet. The solution? To become aware of this pattern, to become conscious. Over time, the pain we resist doesn't disappear. It collects inside us. Layer by layer, moment by moment, every unhealed emotion becomes part of an invisible energy field Tolle calls the pain body. The pain body feeds on negativity. It thrives on drama, anger, and fear. It waits quietly until something triggers it, and suddenly it takes over. That's when you shout, cry, or act in ways you later regret. You say, "I don't know what came over me." But Tolle says, it was your pain body. It isn't you. It's a temporary energy pattern that lives within your unconscious mind. The more you feed it with thoughts like, "They hurt me," or "Life is unfair," the stronger it gets. So how do we free ourselves from this invisible prison? Tolle gives a simple but life-changing answer: awareness. When you become aware of your pain body, you stop feeding it. Just observe it. Don't resist it. Don't identify with it. Say silently, "There is pain inside me right now." And then, do nothing. Simply watch. Feel the energy of that pain inside your body without labeling it as bad. That moment of awareness is powerful because consciousness and pain cannot coexist for long. Where there is light, darkness cannot survive. Tolle says the moment you observe your pain, you are no longer completely identified with it. The observer is the light of consciousness, and that's the end of suffering. The ego, that false identity we built from our mind, constantly feels incomplete. It believes, if I get that job, if I find love, if I make more money, then I'll be happy. But it never ends, because the ego feeds on what's missing. It needs conflict and craving to exist. Tolle says the ego's greatest fear is the present moment, because in the now, it dies. That's why the mind always tries to keep us in time, in the story of me and my life. But the moment you step out of that story and become conscious, you touch something deeper, peace that doesn't depend on anything outside you. Whenever you feel emotional pain, don't run from it. Instead, move deeply into it. Allow yourself to feel the energy of sadness, anger, or fear. Don't name it. Don't analyze it. Just feel it. Tolle says the quickest way out of pain is to stop resisting it. The pain isn't the enemy. It's a messenger reminding you to wake up, to return to presence. When you bring full attention to pain, it can no longer control you. It begins to melt away like ice under sunlight. What's left behind is a deep silence, a stillness that feels alive. That stillness, that peace, is your true nature. Freedom doesn't come by changing your circumstances. It comes by changing your relationship with them. You might still face loss, failure, or rejection, but you'll no longer drown in them. You'll see pain as part of the human experience, but you'll know that deep within you, you are untouched by it. That awareness, that silent watcher within you, is the beginning of true liberation, the freedom that no external situation can take away. So now you understand, pain is not your enemy. It's a doorway to awakening. Through awareness, you can dissolve the pain body and reclaim your inner peace. But here's a question. If all suffering disappears when we live in the present, then how can we actually stay in the now when the mind keeps pulling us back into time? In the next chapter, Eckhart Tolle reveals the secret art of living deeply in the now, a state where peace becomes permanent and every moment becomes sacred.
Chapter 3, Moving Deeply into the Now. You've learned that pain is not something to escape, it's something to understand. That awareness dissolves pain and consciousness sets you free. But now comes the most powerful question of all. If all peace lies in the present moment, then how do we live there? How can we stop our minds from running toward the past and future and finally live deeply, completely in the now? Eckhart Tolle says, one of the greatest illusions humanity has ever created is time. Not the clock time we use to measure schedules or plan the day. That's practical and useful. But psychological time, the constant mental habit of living in yesterday or tomorrow. We spend most of our lives lost in that illusion. We replay old memories, the heartbreaks, the regrets, the mistakes, and when we're not living in the past, we're anxiously waiting for the future, chasing happiness, success, or peace that we think lies ahead. But think about it. Has the future ever arrived? When it does, it's no longer the future, it becomes now. And the past? The moment you try to touch it, it disappears. It exists only as memory, a shadow in your mind. Tolle says time isn't precious because it's an illusion. What's precious is the single point that is always real, the now. Most human unhappiness begins with this. We don't live life, we live time. We define ourselves through stories, who we were, what happened to us, and what we want to become. Our mind says, when I get that job, when I find that person, when things finally change, then I'll be happy. But happiness never arrives because the mind never stops moving the goalpost. It keeps saying, not yet, not now, someday. And in that endless chase, we lose the only thing that's real, this present moment. Eckhart Tolle calls this the sickness of waiting. We wait for the next moment to make us complete while ignoring the miracle happening right now, life itself. The truth is simple, but life-changing. Life is never not now. Think about it. You have never experienced a single moment that wasn't now. The past happened in a former now. The future will happen in another now. So when we say, I miss my past, or I can't wait for the future, we're missing the only moment that actually exists. This one. Tolle says, nothing has ever happened in the past. It happened in the now. Nothing will ever happen in the future. It will happen in the now. This realization changes everything. It doesn't mean you stop planning or stop learning from the past. It means you stop living there. You start living here. So how do we enter the now? Not by thinking about it, but by feeling it. Because the now is not an idea, it's an experience. Start by bringing your attention to your surroundings. Listen, not just to sounds, but to the silence between them. Feel the weight of your body against the chair, the touch of the air on your skin, the rhythm of your breathing. Each time you pay attention to what's happening right here, you step out of the movie playing in your head and into the reality unfolding before your eyes. That's presence. Eckhart Tolle calls it the doorway into being. You don't have to go anywhere, you just have to be here. One of the most beautiful ways to enter the now is through the breath. Because breathing happens only in the present moment. You cannot breathe tomorrow, and you cannot breathe yesterday. So the next time your thoughts begin to race, pause and take one deep breath. Feel the air entering your lungs. Feel it leave your body. That single conscious breath pulls you out of time and brings you back to life. Tolle says, one conscious breath, in and out, is a meditation. The more you practice this, the more your mind begins to quiet down. You'll notice that even in the middle of chaos, there's a calm space inside you that never moves. That's the now, the stillness beneath all movement. Now, some people misunderstand and think Tolle says the mind is bad. That's not true. The mind is a powerful servant, but a terrible master. When it controls you, you become its prisoner. When you observe it, you become its master. The goal is not to destroy the mind, it's to use it consciously, and then put it down when it's not needed. You can still think, plan, create, but now you do it from awareness. Thoughts become tools, not noise. It's like driving a car. You use it to reach your destination, but you don't sleep in it, eat in it, and call it home. Your mind is your vehicle. Your home is consciousness. Tolle says, one of the most shocking but liberating truths is this: all problems are illusions of the mind. When you look closely, you realize that problems don't exist in the present moment, they exist only in your imagination. Think of any problem you have right now. Maybe it's money or relationships or health. Now ask yourself, is it a problem right now, in this exact second? Or is it a memory of what happened or a worry about what might happen? In the now, there are only situations, things to deal with or accept. But the idea of a problem exists only in time. When you focus completely on the present, you realize you can always handle this moment. You can't handle tomorrow because it doesn't exist yet, but you can always handle now. When you surrender to the present moment, life begins to flow through you effortlessly. Decisions become clearer, stress dissolves, and you start living with a quiet confidence that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. Tolle says, accept, then act. Whatever the present moment contains, accept it as if you had chosen it. That's the secret to peace. Instead of fighting life, you merge with it. You become one with the flow of existence itself. Imagine standing in a river. If you resist the current, you struggle and tire yourself out. But if you float, if you trust the flow, you're carried effortlessly downstream. That's what living in the now feels like. It's not passive, it's peaceful action. Tolle often compares awareness to a vast sky and thoughts to passing clouds. Some clouds are dark and heavy, some light and beautiful, but the sky doesn't judge. It simply allows. That's how consciousness works. It doesn't resist or control thought, it observes it. And in that observation, the thoughts lose their grip. So when the mind says, I can't do this, or what if I fail, simply recognize it as a passing cloud, a pattern of energy that will soon dissolve. Behind it, you'll find silence. And that silence is you. As you practice living in the now, you'll begin to sense a quiet depth inside you, a stillness that feels more alive than any excitement or success. It's subtle at first, like a soft hum underneath everything. But as you give more attention to it, it becomes stronger. This stillness is not emptiness, it's fullness. It's peace, love, and joy without reason. It's the recognition that you don't need to do anything to be complete. In that moment, you stop seeking, stop chasing, stop waiting. You've arrived. You're home. When you start living deeply in the now, something profound happens. You still think, you still plan, you still feel emotions, but none of them control you anymore. Joy is no longer attached to success. Peace is no longer destroyed by loss. You begin to see that you are not the waves of life, you are the ocean beneath them. This shift isn't dramatic or loud. It's quiet, gentle, and permanent. It's what spiritual teachers for centuries have called awakening. Of course, the mind will keep trying to pull you back into time. It will whisper, "This is boring," or "You'll be happy when," or "Remember what they did to you?" And when that happens, don't fight it. Simply notice it. Smile at the voice and gently return to your breath, to your body, to the sounds around you. Every time you do that, you weaken the mind's control and strengthen your presence. Don't expect perfection. Presence isn't about staying in the now 24/7. It's about returning to it again and again, until returning becomes natural. Tolle says, whatever you do in the state of presence becomes infused with a sense of quality, care, and love. Even the simplest action. Whether you're walking, cleaning, working, or speaking, when you're fully here, life becomes sacred. You'll start noticing beauty everywhere, in the sound of rain, in the color of light, in the small details of daily life, and most beautifully, in people, because presence allows you to truly see others, not as roles or labels, but as living of the same consciousness that lives within you. That's why living in the now doesn't just change you, it changes how you experience the entire world. Tolle makes a clear distinction between your life and your life situation. Your life, the real life, is the continuous flow of being. Your life situation is what happens within it. Your job, your relationships, your problems. Most people confuse the two. They believe they are their life situation. But when you become present, you realize that your situation may be chaotic, but you are not. You can face challenges with clarity instead of fear. Because you no longer identify with the storm, you recognize yourself as the stillness behind it. Here are a few simple practices Tolle suggests to move deeply into the now. 1. Pause frequently during the day. Take one conscious breath. Notice your surroundings. feel your inner body. Just 10 seconds of awareness can reset your entire state. 2, listen completely. When someone speaks, don't plan your reply, just listen. That's pure presence in action. 3, observe your thoughts. Notice when the mind drifts into the past or future and gently bring it back. Don't punish yourself. Awareness itself is enough. 4, feel your inner energy field. Close your eyes and sense the aliveness inside your hands, chest, or legs. That feeling connects you directly with being. With time, these practices merge into your daily life until awareness becomes as natural as breathing. Living in the now doesn't just change your personal life, it begins a global transformation. Because the more individuals awaken, the more peaceful the collective human mind becomes. Conflict, greed, and fear, they all come from unconscious living. But presence dissolves them, one person at a time. That's how the world changes, not through revolution or force, but through awakening. You can't control the whole world, but you can awaken yourself. And that's where true power lies. The now is not a small moment between past and future. It's the eternal space where life itself unfolds. Everything that has ever happened, every joy, every sorrow, every birth and death, has always happened now. When you understand this, you stop chasing life and start living it. You stop asking, when will I be free? And realize, I already am. Tolle says, the moment you realize you are not present, you are present. Awareness of the now is presence itself. That's the beauty of it. The now is always available. It never leaves you, only you leave it. But even when we start awakening, the mind has its tricks, clever ways of pulling us back into illusion. It creates distractions, resistance, and subtle ego games to keep us from staying in the now. So how do we catch these tricks? How do we stop the mind strategies from hijacking our peace? In the next chapter, Eckhart Tolle uncovers the hidden strategies of the mind and how to disarm them through awareness.
Chapter 4: Mind Strategies for Avoiding the Now. Imagine you're sitting quietly, perhaps sipping coffee or scrolling through your phone. Suddenly, your mind begins to wander, replaying a conversation from yesterday, worrying about a meeting tomorrow, or daydreaming about a better future. You didn't choose to do this, it just happened. This is what Eckhart Tolle calls the loss of now. It's the core delusion of the human mind, the invisible habit of escaping the present moment. We do it so often that we rarely even notice. The mind convinces us that fulfillment, happiness, and peace all exist somewhere else, in the past we can't change, or the future that never truly arrives. Tolle says that this is not just a bad habit, it's the very foundation of human suffering. Loss of now is loss of being. When we are absent from the present moment, life becomes a series of problems to solve, goals to reach, and fears to avoid. Every moment turns into a stepping stone to some imagined future where everything will finally be perfect. But that future never comes, because when it does, it's no longer the future, it's the now again. The illusion of time. Tolle explains that time itself is a mental construct. Yes, clocks tick, days pass, bodies age. That's chronological time. But psychological time is what traps us. It's the inner narrative that constantly replays the past and projects into the future. We say things like, "One day I'll be happy," or "I can't wait until things change." But every time we postpone peace, we give our power away to the illusion of time. To be free of time, Tolle writes, is to be free of the psychological need of the past for your identity and the future for your fulfillment. True freedom, he says, comes from realizing that now is not just one moment among many. It is the only moment that truly exists. The loss of now leads to what Tolle calls unconsciousness. He distinguishes between two levels. One, ordinary unconsciousness, a low-level background dissatisfaction. It's the restlessness, boredom, irritation, or mild anxiety that seems normal in daily life. You may not even notice it because it has become the default state for most people. 2, deep unconsciousness, a more intense form that manifests as anger, despair, hatred, or violence. It's when the ego completely takes over and you feel disconnected from all peace and presence. Both arise from the same source, the mind's resistance to what is. Whenever we mentally argue with reality, wishing things were different, labeling, judging, or resenting, we feed unconsciousness. Why does the mind resist the now so fiercely? Because its survival depends on time. The ego, the false sense of self built from memory and thought, lives by keeping you identified with your story. It constantly seeks something: success, recognition, safety, or love, but whatever it gains is never enough. Tolle writes, "What the ego seeks and what it fears is the same thing, the end of itself." The ego believes that without the chase, without the drama, it will die. So it cleverly disguises avoidance as ambition, nostalgia, or even spiritual seeking. You might tell yourself, "I'll meditate when things calm down," or "I will be happy when I achieve this." But every time you postpone inner peace, you reinforce the illusion that it lies somewhere outside of you. Tolle describes several strategies the mind uses to escape the present. Living in the past, constantly revisiting old pain, regrets, or memories, using them as part of your identity. "I'm this way because of what happened to me." Projecting into the future, believing life will begin after the next goal, vacation, or success. Complaint and resentment, mentally rejecting what is through criticism, blame, or self-pity. Waiting, being mentally elsewhere, waiting for the train, for Friday, for happiness, and therefore not living now. Resistance, feeling inner tension whenever reality doesn't align with the mind's idea of how it should be. Each of these is a way of saying, this moment is not enough. Tolle challenges this belief with one of the book's most liberating ideas. Wherever you are, be there totally. This doesn't mean resignation. It means full engagement, being completely present with what is, without mental escape. Even if you are stuck in traffic or washing dishes, when you do it consciously, life becomes sacred again. How can we tell when we've fallen into one of these traps? Tolle gives us a simple tool: self-observation. He suggests asking, "Am I at ease at this moment?" Or, "What's going on inside me right now?" Don't rush to answer. Instead, become aware of your inner state, the tension in your body, the thoughts in your mind, the subtle unease that may be lurking beneath the surface. This act of witnessing, without judgment, is the beginning of awakening. The moment you realize you are not present, presence itself has already returned. Unhappiness, Tolle says, is not caused by external circumstances, but resistance to what is. You may dislike your job, resent someone close to you, or feel bored and unfulfilled, but notice what's really happening. A part of you is saying, "This moment shouldn't be this way." That inner no creates tension, and that tension becomes unhappiness. He writes, "Whether your thoughts and emotions about a situation are justified or not makes no difference. The moment you complain, you become a victim of your own mind." Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" Tolle invites us to ask, "Can I accept this moment as it is?" If you can,
peace arises instantly, even if nothing outwardly changes. Acceptance isn't weakness, it's power in disguise. When you stop resisting, life's energy flows freely through you. You stop reacting, and instead you respond consciously. Even in pain or loss, acceptance opens the door to peace. When you say yes to this moment, no matter what form it takes, you align yourself with life itself, and that alignment is what transforms everything. Tolle invites us to practice presence in daily life, not as a philosophy, but as a living experience. When you walk, feel your steps. When you breathe, notice your breath. When you listen to someone, be there fully. Every ordinary moment becomes a doorway to the extraordinary. The world outside doesn't have to change. Only your relationship to it does. When you live in the now, you stop chasing life, and life begins to flow effortlessly through you. So ask yourself right now, are you here, or are you somewhere else in your mind? Notice your breath. Feel your body. Listen to the silence between my words. That's the now. That's the presence Eckhart Tolle speaks of. The mind will resist. It will pull you away. But each time you notice and return, that's awakening. That's the beginning of freedom. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle exposes the subtle ways the mind keeps us trapped in time, always seeking and never finding. He shows that peace and fulfillment can only ever be found in the present moment. But this realization raises a deeper, even more transformative question, one that leads directly into the next chapter. If the now is the key to freedom, then what exactly is the state of presence, and how can we live in it permanently?
Chapter 5. The State of Presence. Presence is one of those words we hear often, but rarely understand. Most people imagine it as something mystical, unreachable, or deeply spiritual. Yet Eckhart Tolle begins this chapter by saying something both surprising and liberating. It's not what you think it is. You cannot think about presence, because the moment you try to think about it, you've already left it. Presence cannot be understood by the mind, only experienced. Tolle invites us into a simple experiment. He says, close your eyes and ask yourself, I wonder what my next thought will be. Then wait, alertly, like a cat watching a mouse hole. If you do this, you'll notice something astonishing. You become intensely aware. There's stillness, but not dullness. You are alert, alive, yet without a single thought. That gap, the space between thoughts, is the beginning of presence. In that state, you are no longer lost in the stream of time, memory, or anticipation. You are simply here. As long as your attention is deeply rooted in the now, you are free of thought, and therefore free of the endless noise of the mind. But the instant your attention drops, thought rushes in like a rushing river, pulling you back into time, into the past and future. Tolle calls this the return of the mental noise. It's like a radio that's always on, broadcasting worries, comparisons, plans, and regrets. Presence is the act of turning the volume down or switching it off altogether. When you're present, you haven't lost awareness, you've expanded it. There's alertness without mental commentary, stillness without sleep. You are still yet highly alert, Tolle writes. The instant your conscious attention sinks below a certain level, thought rushes in, and the stillness is lost. In this stillness, something profound happens. The ego begins to dissolve. Your sense of me, built from past experiences and future expectations, starts to fade. But paradoxically, you don't lose yourself. you discover your true self for the first time. The ego thrives on identification with form, your name, story, opinions, possessions, or roles. But presence is formless. It is who you are before thought says who you are. When you are fully present, you are no longer the character in the story of your life. You are the awareness in which that story unfolds. To help us understand this state, Tolle uses a beautiful analogy from the teachings of Jesus. He recalls the parable, "Be like a servant waiting for the return of the master." This isn't the anxious, restless kind of waiting we know, the one filled with boredom or impatience. It's a waiting that is pure alertness. In this kind of waiting, you are completely awake, still yet ready. Something could happen at any moment, and if you are not utterly present, you will miss it. Tolle explains that this is the quality of consciousness Jesus was pointing to. Keep your loins girded and your lamp burning. It means stay awake, stay conscious. This kind of waiting is not passive. It is alive, vibrant, filled with potential energy. Every cell of your body feels alert, as if listening for something sacred. There's no tension, no fear, just a quiet readiness. In that state, the you that has a past and a future, a name and a personality, begins to fade, and what remains is presence itself. Tolle then connects this idea to one of the great misunderstandings in religion. He says that even the parables of Jesus about the end of the world were misunderstood. They were never about the physical destruction of the earth. They were about the end of psychological time, the ending of the egoic mind that lives in the past and future. When this mind dissolves, a new world is born, not outside you, but within you. It's the same message the Buddha taught through Satori, a sudden flash of awakening, a moment of no mind and total presence. Have you ever stood quietly in nature and suddenly felt a deep peace, as if everything was alive and sacred, and you were a part of it? That is presence recognizing itself in the outer world. Tolle says, presence is needed to become aware of the beauty, the majesty, the sacredness of nature. Without presence, you look but do not see. You hear but do not listen. Only when your mind becomes still does the world around you reveal its living essence. This is why artists, poets, and mystics have always spoken of silence and stillness, not as emptiness, but as fullness. In presence, beauty arises naturally, not because you are analyzing or naming things as beautiful, but because you are seeing without thought. That's why a simple flower or the sound of wind in the trees can suddenly fill you with awe. In that moment, the boundary between observer and observed dissolves, and there is only life itself. Presence, Tolle says, is not something to achieve. It's what you already are when you stop identifying with the mind. It is pure consciousness, the space in which all thoughts, emotions, and perceptions appear. To experience this directly, he suggests small practices. Watch your breath, not mechanically, but with deep awareness. Feel the aliveness in your body, the tingling energy beneath your skin. Listen to the silence underneath sounds. The more you practice, the more you realize you are not the one thinking about life, you are being life itself. This realization is not an intellectual understanding, it's a shift in perception. The center of your identity moves from form, your thoughts, emotions, and body, to formless awareness, presence. When the final part of the chapter, Tolle bridges spirituality and religion. He explains that when Jesus spoke of Christ, he wasn't referring to a person, but to a state of consciousness, the divine presence that lives in everyone. Christ isn't a name, but a title, a recognition of divine awareness expressing itself through human form. When you awaken to presence, you awaken to this same Christ consciousness. Tolle writes, use the Master's presence to reflect your own identity beyond name and form back to you. In other words, enlightened beings like Jesus or Buddha are mirrors. They show you what you truly are. Their light helps awaken the light already within you. When you recognize presence in another, it's because presence is already alive in you. Darkness cannot recognize light. Only light can recognize light. Tolle also speaks of the power of shared presence. When a group of people come together in awareness, not thinking, not arguing, just being, a powerful field of energy is created. And he says this collective presence can help lift the consciousness of humanity itself. But he warns the ego can easily reassert itself, even in spiritual groups. So while group practice is helpful, one must not become dependent on it. True presence is self-sustaining. It does not rely on any outer condition. Ultimately, the state of presence is not something new you acquire. It is your natural state of being. It's who you were before thought, before conditioning, before identity. As you deepen in awareness, you begin to sense this presence as a quiet undercurrent in your life, a stillness that remains even amidst chaos. It is the same peace that Tolle describes in his own awakening, a peace that has never left me since then. Sometimes it's strong and palpable, other times it rests in the background like a soft melody, but it is always there. To summarize, the state of presence is the awareness that exists beyond thought, the end of identification with time and ego, the realization of your true essence, pure consciousness, the silent field from which beauty, love, and peace naturally arise. When you are present, you don't need to seek enlightenment. You are enlightenment in that very moment. Presence is the key. The now is the key. Take a breath. Can you feel the aliveness inside your hands,
Your chest, your body, that subtle tingling, that energy, that is presence. You're not imagining it. You're sensing the same consciousness Eckhart Tolle points to, the life that exists before words and thoughts. The more you rest in it, the more your life begins to flow with grace and effortless peace. And yet, a question remains. If presence is our natural state, why do we keep losing it? What makes us drift back into thought, fear, and separation? And how can we anchor ourselves more deeply in this state of awareness? Eckhart Tolle answers this in the next chapter, where he reveals a powerful gateway into presence, the inner body, the living bridge between the physical and the spiritual. So, what exactly is the inner body, and how can it become our doorway to enlightenment?
Chapter 6. The Inner Body. Imagine for a moment that you close your eyes and turn your attention inward. Not towards your thoughts, but towards your body. Not to how it looks, but to how it feels from within. You might start to sense a faint vibration, a subtle aliveness flowing through your hands, your chest, your entire being. That gentle hum, that quiet energy, Eckhart Tolle calls it the inner body. This chapter is about discovering that energy, the invisible bridge between the outer world of form and the inner world of spirit. Tolle begins by saying something revolutionary. To be anchored in the body is to stand firmly in the now. because your body can only exist here and now, not in the past, not in the future. The mind lives in time, but the body lives in the present. By connecting with it deeply, you anchor yourself in the now and awaken to the dimension of being. When Tolle speaks of the inner body, he doesn't mean your physical body, the muscles, bones, and organs we see. He means the energy field that gives life to the physical body, the unseen vitality that animates it. He says, every cell in your body is alive. The body that you can see and touch is only a thin veil over a deeper, vibrant field of energy. That energy field is your direct link to the unmanifested, the source of all life. By feeling your inner body, you become aware of the life within you, and that awareness itself is a doorway into presence. You don't have to believe in it, you only have to feel it. Tolle offers a simple but powerful practice. Close your eyes. Direct your attention into your hands. Don't move them, just feel them from within. Can you sense a subtle tingling, a warmth, an aliveness? That's it. That's your inner body. Now expand your awareness gradually to your arms, your chest, your legs, your feet, your entire form until you feel your whole body as one field of energy. This is not imagination. It's the felt sense of life itself, conscious presence taking form as the body. When you hold this awareness continuously, thought begins to lose its grip because your attention is no longer trapped in the mind. You are rooted in being, still, alive, and completely present. Tolle explains that focusing on the inner body is one of the most effective ways to stay in the now. When you are in touch with that inner energy, you are in touch with life itself. Being aware of the inner body keeps you present. It anchors you in the now. He calls this a spiritual practice that can be done anywhere, while walking, talking, or working. For instance, while listening to someone, feel your inner body at the same time. This prevents you from being pulled into mental or emotional reactions and creates a space of stillness within you. It's as if two levels of attention are operating, one outward, interacting with the world, the other inward, rooted in presence. This dual awareness, outer and inner, is a sign that consciousness is awakening through you. Tolle emphasizes that connecting with the inner body isn't just a meditation trick. It's a profound transformation of consciousness. When you're aware of your inner energy, you're no longer completely identified with your physical form. You realize, I have a body, but I am not just this body. This realization weakens the fear of death, because death only affects form, not the formless life that animates it. The more consciousness you direct into the inner body, the higher its vibrational frequency becomes, like a light shining from within. He even suggests that this practice can heal the body, not magically, but through alignment. When you are deeply present, your body's natural intelligence functions without interference. Stress and resistance, both products of the mind, begin to dissolve, and the body can finally do what it's designed to do: regenerate and restore balance. Here, Tolle introduces one of the book's most profound ideas. The body is a portal, one of the portals into the unmanifested. The unmanifested, as he explains in the next chapter, is the formless source of all creation, the eternal, still dimension behind the visible world. When you bring awareness into your inner body, you approach that threshold. You begin to sense the presence of something vast, silent, and infinite, a peace that doesn't come and go. It's like tuning your attention from the noise of the outer world to the quiet hum of existence itself. You realize that what you truly are is not the body, not the mind, but the awareness that perceives both. Many spiritual traditions have emphasized transcending the body, but Tolle insists that the body is not an obstacle to enlightenment. It's an instrument. The body grounds consciousness in the material world. Without it, awakening would remain abstract. He says, Do not fight your body, for it is not your enemy. Through it you enter being. By honoring the body, feeling it, and living through it consciously, you allow the divine to express itself through form. Your body becomes sacred, not because of how it looks, but because of the awareness that inhabits it. Tolle notes that when you are deeply connected to your inner body, a subtle yet powerful stillness arises. This stillness is not lifeless. It's vibrant and full of intelligence. He compares it to the stillness of nature, the peace you feel in a forest or by the ocean. That same stillness exists within you as your natural state of being. Stillness is your essential nature. It is the space in which the form of your body exists. When you rest in this stillness, your life begins to flow differently. You become less reactive, more intuitive, more compassionate. Decisions arise effortlessly. You stop struggling with life, and instead life moves through you with grace. Another simple gateway to the inner body is conscious breathing. Tolle calls the breath a bridge between the form and the formless. When you breathe consciously, feeling the air enter and leave your body without mental commentary, you become present. He says, breathing consciously reconnects your mind to the body, bringing you into the now. Each breath becomes an anchor, a reminder that life is always happening now. It's not just air moving through you, it's existence itself expressing through form. Tolle also explains how awareness of the inner body can transform relationships. When you're in touch with your inner energy, you create a space of presence between yourself and others. This space dissolves conflict and egoic reactions. Even if the person in front of you is angry or defensive, your inner stillness acts as a mirror. Their unconsciousness cannot survive in the light of your awareness. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means your actions and words come from clarity, not reactivity. Presence doesn't suppress emotions. It transforms them. As your connection with the inner body deepens, you begin to sense a subtle movement from form to formlessness. You might start by feeling energy in your hands and body, but beyond that, you might sense an even deeper stillness, a vast, open space surrounding and permeating you. That space, Tolle says, is not separate from you. It is you, your deeper essence, beyond name and form. When you are deeply aware of the inner body, you no longer identify with form. You realize yourself as that which has no form, consciousness itself. This is the beginning of true freedom, the freedom from identification with the physical and the mental. As your awareness penetrates the body, a transformation takes place. You start to feel your body as light, a luminous field rather than a solid object. This is not imagination, it's the natural result of sustained awareness. The denser layers of energy, tension, pain, resistance, begin to dissolve, and your vibration rises. Tolle says this light body is not something new, it has always been there. You are simply remembering it. In this way, awakening is not about becoming something else. It's about recognizing what you already are. To integrate this practice into everyday life, Tolle suggests making it part of your daily awareness. When you wake up, before moving, feel the inner body. When you walk, stay connected to the aliveness inside your body. When you listen or speak, keep part of your attention rooted within. The more you live this way, the more presence becomes your natural state. Eventually, even when challenges arise, a part of you remains untouched, silent, observing, deeply at peace. That is the power of the inner body, the doorway to stillness that nothing external can disturb. Right now, pause for a moment. Can you feel your hands from the inside? Can you sense the subtle pulse of life in your chest, your belly, your legs? That's the inner body, your connection to the eternal life beneath all movement. That awareness is not something you have, it's what you are. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle shows that the path to enlightenment isn't far away or abstract. It's as close as your own breath, as intimate as your heartbeat. When you connect with your inner body, you touch the divine
within yourself, the same consciousness that animates all of existence. Tolle writes, "Stay rooted within, and the outer world will lose its grip on you." Through the body, you find the formless. Through stillness, you find life. And yet, Tolle hints that there's something even deeper, a dimension beyond the body itself. He calls it the unmanifested, the source from which all life arises and into which it returns. That's the journey of the next chapter. Portals into the unmanifested.
Chapter 7. Portals into the unmanifested. Eckhart Tolle begins this chapter with a profound question. What is the unmanifested? It is the invisible source of all life, the timeless, formless dimension that lies beyond the world of form. Everything you can see, touch, and experience arises from this vast stillness, and when its cycle ends, it dissolves back into it. You could call it God, being, the source, or pure consciousness. The name doesn't matter. What matters is recognizing that behind every form, every sound, every heartbeat, there is an eternal stillness that never changes. Tolle explains that the mind cannot grasp the unmanifested. You can't think your way to it, read about it, or imagine it. The only way to know it is to experience it directly through portals that open into that inner silence. The entire world of existence, Tolle says, is the dance between two poles. The manifested is the physical world, objects, people, events, thoughts, emotions, time. The unmanifested is the invisible background, pure being, eternal consciousness. They are not two separate realms, but one reality expressing itself in two ways. Think of the ocean and its waves. The waves are form, constantly changing, but the ocean itself, vast and still beneath the surface, is formless being. In the same way, your thoughts and emotions are waves on the surface of your consciousness. Beneath them lies the infinite ocean of the unmanifested. When you recognize that stillness, even for a moment, you realize that you're not a separate wave. You are the ocean itself. Tolle explains that there are several portals, entry points, through which you can access the unmanifested while living in the world of form. Each portal opens when the noise of the mind quiets and awareness deepens. Through them, you enter the dimension of peace that exists beyond thinking, beyond identity. He identifies 5 main portals, each offering a different path to the same timeless presence. 1, the now. 2, the inner body. 3, stillness and silence. 4, space. And 5, the cessation of thought. Let's explore each one as Tolle guides us. The first and most essential portal is the now itself. Every moment of true presence opens directly into the unmanifested, because the now is not time, it's eternity entering this world. Tolle says,
The now is the closest the manifested can come to the unmanifested. When you are fully present, not lost in thought or emotion, you are standing at the very threshold of being. That's why all the great masters, Buddha, Jesus, Lao Tzu, spoke of the present moment as the path to liberation. The now isn't just a moment in time. It's the timeless dimension of life in which all moments arise. To be deeply present is to touch the eternal. The second portal, which Tolle explored in the previous chapter, is the inner body, the energy field that underlies your physical form. When you feel the inner body deeply, you are aware of the formless life within you. That awareness pulls you out of identification with the mind and connects you directly to being. He says, feel your inner body and you are anchored in the now. It connects you to that which is beyond form. The more attention you give to your inner energy, the thinner the boundary between the manifested and the unmanifested becomes. Eventually, the two merge, and you realize they were never truly separate. The third and perhaps the most accessible portal is stillness and silence. Tolle describes stillness not as the absence of movement, but as the presence of peace. Silence is not the absence of sound, but the background in which all sounds arise and fade. When you become aware of silence, even the silence between words, between thoughts, you are touching the unmanifested. He writes, every sound is born out of silence, dies back into silence, and during its lifespan is surrounded by silence. Try listening not just to sounds, but to the space around sounds. When you do this, your attention shifts from the content of life to the eternal space that contains it all. This is why meditation and mindful listening are so powerful. They tune your awareness to the silence that is always here, underneath the noise. The fourth portal is space, both outer and inner. Outer space is the physical vastness between stars and objects. Inner space is the emptiness between your thoughts and emotions. Both are expressions of the same formless essence, the unmanifested. Tolle says outer space and inner space are one. Both are stillness. Both are the unmanifested. He encourages us to notice the space in which things exist, not just the things themselves. For example, when you enter a room, instead of focusing only on the furniture or people, sense the spaciousness that holds it all together. The shift in perception awakens a new dimension of awareness. When you recognize the space that allows all things to be, you are, in that very moment, recognizing your own essence as consciousness itself. The final and most direct portal is the cessation of thought, moments when the mind stops completely and pure awareness shines through. This can happen spontaneously or through meditation, contemplation, or deep presence. In those gaps between thoughts, you experience the formless, a peace so deep it can't be described. Tolle reminds us that enlightenment isn't about having no thoughts all the time. It's about realizing that you are not your thoughts. When thoughts stop, even for a second, you are free. And in that freedom, the unmanifested reveals itself. Tolle encourages readers not to separate the sacred from the ordinary. The unmanifested isn't somewhere else. It's right here, hidden beneath the surface of every moment. When you wash dishes, walk, breathe, or listen, you can become aware of the still presence within and around you. That awareness turns the simplest acts into gateways to the divine. He says, everyday life is your spiritual practice. You don't need to retreat to a monastery. The unmanifested is always available through the portals of the present moment. Even pain and loss, he explains, can become doorways. When life strips away what is temporary, it exposes what is eternal. Suffering, when met with awareness, becomes a passage into a deeper state of consciousness, the space where all resistance dissolves and only peace remains. One of the most beautiful insights in this chapter is Tolle's explanation of death. He says the fear of death comes from identifying with form, the body, the mind, the story. But when you connect with the unmanifested, you realize that what dies is only the form, not the essence. The unmanifested does not die. It is the eternal life that you are. To know the unmanifested is to know that death is an illusion. Life and death are two sides of the same movement, the ebb and flow of consciousness. When you are rooted in the unmanifested, death loses its sting. You see it as simply a return to the source, the same source you can touch now, in this very moment of stillness. As human beings, we are bridges between two dimensions: the manifested, where we think, act, and experience;
The unmanifested, where we rest in being, stillness, and peace. Our task is not to reject one and cling to the other, but to live with awareness of both. Tolle says that a true spiritual life is one where you are fully engaged with the world, yet deeply rooted in the stillness beneath it. You can work, create, love, and live fully, but you no longer lose yourself in the drama of form. Your actions arise from a place of peace, not compulsion. That is what he calls living in the world, but not of it. Close your eyes for a moment. Listen, not to the sounds around you, but to the silence beneath them. Feel the stillness inside your body. Sense the space around you and within you. In that quiet awareness, you are touching the unmanifested, the eternal presence that has never been born and will never die. You have always been this. You just forgot. Eckhart Tolle's message in this chapter is clear and timeless. The unmanifested is not somewhere else. It is the invisible essence of everything that exists, including you. Through portals like the now, inner body awareness, silence, space, and the cessation of thought, you can enter that realm anytime, anywhere. Each moment of true presence brings you closer to the realization that there is no separation between you and the divine source of all life. Every portal is within you, Tolle reminds us. You carry eternity wherever you go. But even after touching the unmanifested, one question remains. How does this inner awakening transform the way we relate to others? If presence connects us to peace within, how can it also heal the chaos and pain that often arise in human relationships? That's what Eckhart Tolle explores next, in one of the most profound and practical chapters of the entire book. Enlightened relationships. Can love truly exist without attachment, need, or ego? And what does an enlightened relationship really look like?
Chapter 8: Enlightened Relationships. Most people believe that true happiness and love
will come when they finally find the right person, someone who will complete them. But Tolle begins this chapter by shattering that illusion. Quote, "Salvation is not in the future. It is here and now." He explains that relationships often mirror our inner state of consciousness. When we live lost in thought and unconscious patterns, our relationships reflect that, filled with conflict, fear, and dependency. The moment we step into presence, everything changes. We stop trying to fix our partner and instead meet them in the now, without judgment, without expectation. A relationship grounded in presence becomes a space for awakening rather than a battlefield for the ego. Tolle reveals a painful truth. Most so-called love relationships are actually a mix of love and hate. At first, everything feels magical. You project your inner completeness onto the other person. They seem to fill your emptiness. But when that illusion fades, when they fail to meet your expectations, the same love can quickly turn to anger or resentment. Quote, "What you thought was love is often just an addictive need to complete yourself through another." End quote. The ego's love always comes with a shadow, fear of loss, jealousy, and control. True love, on the other hand, arises from presence. It has no opposite because it is not based on need. It simply is. Unconscious relationships are like emotional addictions. We crave another person like a drug, seeking in them what we haven't found within ourselves. This dependency always leads to pain. When the high fades, we experience withdrawal, loneliness, anger, or emptiness. Tolle's insight is simple but profound. Quote, "You cannot make another person your source of happiness." End quote. When you no longer seek wholeness through others, your relationships become truly free, rooted in joy rather than need. Can an unconscious relationship transform into an enlightened one? Yes, says Tolle, but only if at least one partner becomes present. When one person practices awareness, observing thoughts, staying still, feeling their inner body, something miraculous happens. The pain body, the accumulated emotional pain within, begins to dissolve. Conflict may still arise, but instead of reacting blindly, you notice the pattern, breathe, and stay present. Quote, "The relationship then becomes a spiritual practice, a mirror in which you can see your own unconsciousness." End quote. Through awareness, even pain becomes a portal to awakening. Relationships, Tolle says, are not just emotional experiences, they are spiritual laboratories. Each conflict, each irritation, is an invitation to awaken. When your partner triggers you, don't immediately defend or attack. Pause. Observe what's happening inside you. Maybe it's anger, maybe fear, maybe the urge to control. That awareness, the simple act of watching without judging, begins to dissolve the ego's grip. Quote, "Every moment of tension is an opportunity for salvation." End quote. In this way, your partner becomes not an obstacle, but a teacher, helping you wake up to the deeper stillness within yourself. In this chapter, Tolle also offers a beautiful insight about feminine energy. He says that women, by their very nature, are often closer to being, to presence. Because the female body is more connected to the cycles of life, creation, and surrender, women often have an intuitive access to stillness. Quote, "The female form is more closely aligned with nature, and therefore can more easily become a doorway to the unmanifested." End quote. However, this potential is often obscured by the collective female pain body, centuries of accumulated emotional suffering and oppression. When a woman becomes aware of that pain without identifying with it, it begins to dissolve, not just for her, but for the collective consciousness of women everywhere. Tolle speaks with compassion about the collective female pain body, the emotional energy inherited from generations of inequality, abuse, and suppression. When this pain body awakens, it can express itself as anger, sadness, or deep suffering. But awareness transforms it. Quote, "Every time a woman brings presence to her inner pain, part of the collective human pain is healed." End quote. This isn't just personal healing, it's planetary. The light of consciousness shining through one human being uplifts all of humanity. Toward the end of the chapter, Tolle introduces one of his most surprising ideas. Quote, "Give up the relationship you have with yourself." End quote. At first, this sounds strange. Aren't we supposed to love ourselves? Tolle explains that as long as you are in a relationship with yourself, there are two of you, the image of me and the observer who judges that image. This split is the very root of the ego. When you drop all self-judgment and stop trying to become someone, only being remains. You don't have a relationship with yourself, you are yourself, fully. From that place, every relationship you have becomes clear, effortless, and loving. Quote, "When you are at peace with yourself, you are at peace with all beings." End quote. An enlightened relationship is not about perfection, it's about presence. It's not about never arguing or never feeling pain, it's about being conscious even when pain arises. When both partners are rooted in awareness, love becomes like a clear sky. Clouds may pass, but the sky itself is never disturbed. In an enlightened relationship, you no longer seek to possess or control. You no longer use another to fill your emptiness. You see your partner not as mine, but as a mirror of the divine. Such love is not emotional drama, it's spacious, peaceful, and alive. It is being, recognizing being. Tolle concludes by reminding us that love in its purest form is not something we do, it's what we are. When you live in presence, love naturally radiates from you. It doesn't need an object, it flows like light from the sun. It may express as compassion, patience, forgiveness, or quiet joy, but it always comes from the same source, awareness. Quote, "Love is not selective. It embraces all because it arises from the recognition of oneness." End quote. This is the love of being itself, infinite, unconditional, and free from fear. Close your eyes for a moment. Think of someone you love or someone you've struggled with. Now, instead of focusing on their personality, sense the stillness behind their form, the same stillness that lives in you. That shared awareness is love, not an emotion, but the very essence of life. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle shows us that relationships can either be a source of suffering or a path to liberation. When both people are unconscious, relationships become entangled in ego and pain. When even one person awakens, the relationship becomes a field of healing and transformation. An enlightened relationship is not about needing another, it's about sharing the completeness you already are. Quote, "Love is not what you seek, it's what you are when you stop seeking." End quote. But even as we find peace and love through presence, another question arises. If love is beyond emotion, can there also be a peace that is beyond both happiness and unhappiness? A state so deep that it remains untouched no matter what happens? That's exactly what Eckhart Tolle explores next. In Chapter 9, Beyond Happiness and Unhappiness, There is Peace. So what lies beyond the endless chase for happiness, and how can we discover the unshakable peace that never fades?
Chapter 9. Beyond Happiness and Unhappiness, There is Peace. Eckhart Tolle begins this chapter with a question that challenges one of humanity's deepest assumptions. Is there a difference between happiness and inner peace? The answer, he says, is yes, a profound one. Happiness depends on external conditions, things going your way. Inner peace, on the other hand, does not. When you tie your joy to circumstances, your peace becomes fragile. But when you awaken to presence, peace becomes your natural state, untouched by what happens around you. Tolle warns us against the modern obsession with positive thinking. The mind wants to attract only good things and reject the bad, but this selective approach is still rooted in resistance. He asks, do you truly know what is positive and what is negative? Sometimes what appears as tragedy becomes our greatest teacher. Loss, failure, illness, these moments strip away illusions and force us to meet ourselves beyond the ego. What the mind labels as bad can actually be a doorway to awakening. From the higher perspective of consciousness, life events are neither good nor bad, they simply are. When you live in total acceptance of what is, you stop dividing the world into opposites. You begin to experience the higher good that includes everything, even the bad. Seen from the mind, life is a battlefield. Seen from awareness, it is a dance of opposites. Every human being carries within them a life drama, a story of triumphs, struggles, and injustices. But Tolle reminds us that this entire drama is sustained only by identification with the mind and its past. When you stop defining yourself by your story, when you no longer say, "This is who I am because of what happened to me," the drama begins to dissolve. Without the constant mental commentary, life becomes peaceful and simple. You are not your story. You are not your pain. You are not even your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. This realization doesn't make you passive, it makes you free. The moment you honor the present moment, Tolle says, all unhappiness dissolves. The end of your life drama isn't the end of your life, it's the beginning of real living. Everything in existence follows a natural rhythm: creation and dissolution, birth and death, growth and decay. Tolle explains that when we resist these natural cycles, we suffer. The ego wants to cling to form, youth, beauty, possessions, relationships, and when these change or fade, it panics. He gives the example of a famous actress who became deeply depressed as her beauty declined with age. She had identified herself with her appearance. When that image faded, so did her sense of self. If she had connected with the timeless presence within her, she could have allowed her body to age with grace and peace. Her outer beauty would have transformed into inner radiance. The Buddha called this insight dukkha, the unsatisfactoriness of all temporary things. Even happiness, he said, contains the seed of suffering because it depends on conditions that are bound to change. Your happiness and unhappiness are one. Only the illusion of time separates them. True wisdom lies in accepting impermanence, not as a sad truth, but as the gateway to peace. When you no longer cling to what comes and goes, you discover something that never leaves, the stillness of being itself. All forms of inner resistance manifest as negativity, irritation, anger, fear, depression, or despair. Negativity, says Tolle, is not natural. It arises when the mind resists the present moment, when it says, "This should not be happening." The ego believes that by being negative, it can manipulate reality, that unhappiness will somehow buy what it wants. But the truth is the opposite. Negativity does not change situations. It only strengthens the ego and keeps suffering alive. Negativity feeds the illusion of separateness, Tolle explains. The only way to dissolve negativity is not by fighting it, but by observing it,
seeing it clearly as resistance. When you become the watcher of your irritation, jealousy, or sadness, you stop feeding it. Presence disarms the ego's drama.
In that seeing, peace enters, silently but powerfully. When you awaken from identification with the mind, you begin to see the unconsciousness of others, the pain behind their anger, the fear beneath their cruelty. At first, this realization can make you sad, but Tolle says, eventually, it gives birth to compassion. You understand that most people are not acting out of choice. They are driven by their conditioning, their pain bodies, their past. To expect them to behave differently is like expecting a storm not to rain. How can you resent someone's illness? Tolle asks. The only appropriate response is compassion. This compassion does not make you weak, it makes you free. You stop reacting with judgment or resentment and start responding with understanding. Even forgiveness becomes unnecessary because in deep awareness, you see that there was never truly anything to forgive. The deeper message of this chapter is that there is another dimension of life, beyond the world of opposites, beyond good and bad, beyond happiness and unhappiness. This is the dimension of being, the silent, formless reality that underlies all existence. You don't have to reach it, you already are it. All that's needed is surrender, the willingness to stop resisting life and allow this moment to be as it is. When you offer no resistance to life, you enter a state of grace, ease, and lightness. In that state, even the external conditions of your life begin to improve naturally. Not because you're struggling to make them better, but because you are no longer blocking life's flow with inner resistance. You may not always be happy, but you will always be at peace. A peace so deep that even chaos cannot disturb it. This is the joy of being, untouched by time, beyond gain or loss. Happiness that comes from outside, success, possessions, recognition, is fragile and fleeting. But the joy of being is different. It doesn't depend on anything external. It arises when you drop resistance, when you stop demanding that life be a certain way. Even if everything collapses around you, your plans, your relationships, your body, there remains a quiet core within you that is untouched. That is true peace. You may not be happy, but you will be at peace. That peace is not an emotion. It is your natural state, the essence of who you are. To live beyond happiness and unhappiness is to live beyond the tyranny of the mind. When you realize that no external situation can give or take away your true essence, you become free. Then life flows effortlessly. You begin to act not from reaction, but from awareness. You are no longer trying to get to peace, you are peace. This is the ultimate liberation, the end of psychological suffering, and the birth of a new consciousness on earth. In this chapter, Eckhart Tolle teaches that happiness is conditional, peace is unconditional. What seems bad can be a hidden blessing. Suffering ends when you stop resisting what is. Compassion arises from understanding human unconsciousness. True joy is found in being, not in doing, having, or becoming. To live beyond happiness and unhappiness is not to become emotionless, but to rest in the eternal stillness that watches both arise and fade. You are not your moods, your thoughts, or your circumstances. You are the awareness in which they appear and disappear. But if peace comes from total acceptance of what is, how do we actually surrender?
especially when life feels unbearable, unfair, or full of loss. How can surrender transform pain into power and disaster into awakening? That's exactly what Eckhart Tolle reveals next in Chapter 10, The Meaning of Surrender. What if the act of giving up isn't defeat, but the doorway to ultimate freedom?
Chapter 10, The Meaning of Surrender. Eckhart Tolle begins this final chapter by addressing a common misunderstanding. Many people hear the word surrender and immediately think of defeat, passivity, or giving up. But true surrender, he explains, is something far more powerful. Surrender is not weakness. It is the simple but profound wisdom of yielding to, rather than opposing, the flow of life. To surrender means to accept the present moment unconditionally and without resistance. It's not about accepting an outer situation forever, but about releasing inner resistance to what is happening right now. When you stop fighting reality, you open yourself to peace. When you resist life, you suffer. The act of surrender is therefore not an end, it's the beginning of transformation. True surrender starts with a single step: accepting the now. Every time you say yes to what is, even to something painful, you dissolve the ego's grip and awaken to peace. This doesn't mean you stop taking action. You can still make changes, but those actions now arise from clarity and flow, not from struggle or resistance. When you accept what is, every moment becomes the best possible starting point for change. When you fight against the now, you are fighting against life itself. But when you yield to it, when you say, yes, this is what is happening right now, something miraculous happens inside you. Your mind quiets down, a stillness emerges, and from that stillness, true wisdom flows. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what's happening. It means you stop adding unnecessary mental commentary. This shouldn't be happening. Once that commentary dissolves, peace returns naturally. Tolle describes how resistance creates negative energy, tension, anxiety, and emotional pain. This energy feeds the ego and keeps the cycle of suffering alive. Surrender transforms that energy. When you no longer resist what is, mind energy turns into spiritual energy, a calm, luminous presence that can act intelligently and compassionately. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding with awareness. Instead of being consumed by problems, you become the space in which they arise, and often they begin to dissolve on their own. Through surrender, the energy that was trapped in resistance is released and becomes available to you. It's not about inaction, it's about right action. The difference is simple. When you are in resistance, action is driven by fear or anger. When you are surrendered, action is guided by peace. Relationships, Tolle says, are one of the greatest opportunities to practice surrender. When two egos clash, each wants to be right, to win, to control. But surrender in a relationship doesn't mean allowing others to mistreat you or staying silent in the face of injustice. It means not letting your inner peace depend on another person's behavior. When you stop demanding that others change to make you happy, a new kind of relationship becomes possible, one rooted in awareness, not need. You can only be in conflict with someone if you resist what is. Surrender in relationships is not resignation. It is choosing peace over drama, understanding over reaction. You may still speak your truth, but you do so from a place of calm presence, not emotional reactivity. In that space of surrender, love is no longer conditional. It simply flows through you. One of the most powerful sections of this chapter deals with illness and physical suffering. Tolle teaches that pain in the body becomes suffering only when the mind resists it. When we say, "I can't stand this," or "why me?"
we create an additional layer of psychological pain on top of physical pain. But when you surrender, when you allow the sensations to be there without labeling or fighting them, something shifts. The resistance drops, and what remains is pure presence. Surrender transforms illness into enlightenment. He tells stories of people who, in the face of terminal illness, found deep peace and even joy. They stopped fighting life and entered a state of radiant awareness that no disease could touch. The body may weaken, but consciousness, your true essence, remains untouched, eternal, and free. What happens when something truly devastating happens? A tragedy, loss, or disaster? Tolle doesn't sugarcoat it. Such moments often bring deep pain, but they can also bring awakening. When everything you cling to collapses, your health, your possessions, your identity, the ego has nothing left to stand on, and in that collapse, a space opens for something new, presence. Surrender is the acceptance of the present moment, even when it feels unbearable. Surrender doesn't mean you pretend to enjoy suffering. It means you allow what is already here to be, without resistance. And paradoxically, that acceptance dissolves the suffering more quickly than any resistance ever could. Many people have found their spiritual awakening in moments of loss. The pain broke open their sense of self and revealed the stillness beyond all forms. Suffering, says Tolle, is always caused by non-acceptance, by resistance to the now. But the moment you fully accept what you feel, whether it's fear, anger, or grief, the suffering begins to lose its power. You no longer say, "I don't want this," but "This is what is happening right now, and I allow it." That simple shift from resistance to allowance is what transforms suffering into peace.
The miracle of surrender is that when you accept what is, everything you thought you lost is returned to you at a higher level. You realize that peace was never dependent on circumstances. It was always within you, waiting for your resistance to fall away. Tolle connects this teaching to the symbolism of the cross in Christianity. He explains that carrying your cross means accepting the suffering that life presents, not as punishment, but as a path to transcendence. When you stop resisting pain and fully surrender to it, you rise above it, just as the vertical dimension of the cross represents rising above the horizontal line of time and suffering. Suffering has a noble purpose, the evolution of consciousness. Through surrender, pain becomes purification. It burns away the false self until only the light of pure being remains. At the end of the chapter, Tolle reveals a profound truth. As long as the mind controls you, you don't truly have a choice. You're simply reacting according to your conditioning. But the moment you awaken, the moment you see your own resistance, you gain the power to choose. You can choose to surrender. You can choose to stop fighting life. You can choose peace. Presence is the key. The now is the key. When you surrender completely to the present, the past loses its hold over you. You don't need to forgive or forget, because you realize that nothing real was ever harmed. And when that realization dawns, forgiveness happens naturally. The whole idea of forgiveness even becomes unnecessary, because you see that at the deepest level, nothing needs to be forgiven. In this final chapter, Eckhart Tolle teaches that surrender is not giving up, it's waking up. When you stop resisting what is, life begins to flow through you effortlessly. You move from mind energy to spiritual energy, from fear to faith, from pain to peace.
Surrender doesn't mean inaction. It means acting from the stillness of being rather than the turmoil of the mind. It is the ultimate letting go, the realization that you are not separate from life, but one with it. When you surrender to what is, you become free of the mind-made self. You then realize your true identity as consciousness itself. Through surrender, even suffering becomes sacred. The cross of pain transforms into the light of awakening. Tolle ends the book with a quiet, powerful message. You don't need to seek enlightenment in the future. You don't need to find peace somewhere else. It is already here, hidden in the stillness of this moment.